Back in Nixon era, 1960s, when he conceded because he got caught with the incriminative evidence of breaking into Watergate with his tapes, and the Republicans realized that he committed a crime and he needed to step down. So Nixon had no choice but to get on Marine One and wave peace. And he said at his concession speech when he stepped down, "He who hates his enemy defeats himself." But the Republican of yesterday is not the Republican of today. There's incriminative evidence how Giuliani came to the swing states to try to overturn a fair and free election by appointing crony Trump delegates, subverting the minority votes in this nation, in the ghettos of our inner cities, within the swing states that voted 7 million on behalf of Biden. And when I try to phase in forensic voting, Giuliani came to the Four Seasons to try to discredit my character because they wanted to appoint Trump delegates. And they knew that if I was to phase in the forensic voting, that if there was a re-election count in 2020, that Trump would have lost because they knew that the votes of 7 million were legit, while Steve Bannon was with Sidney Powell traveling to Georgia, Arizona, Pennsylvania. So when you try to obstruct and overturn a government and steal an election and then obstruct the investigations and the Republicans don't hold him accountable, they don't hold Trump accountable for whatever crimes Trump do and does and commits. Here into the future, these Republicans don't have a conscience. They're definitely not the party of the Republicans during the civil rights movement. They're not the Republicans of yesterday that knew that if the plumbers broke into the DNC to overturn and subvert an election, that was a crime. Enough that the Republicans were about to slap the handcuffs on Nixon if he didn't get out the Oval Office. They gave Nixon an ultimatum, the Republicans. If you don't get out the Oval Office, we will send in the FBI to handcuff you. Nixon knew that the gig was up. That's why he got on Marine One. That was the Republican of good, honest consciousness of what's right and what's wrong. At least the party of the Republicans in that era. They say, oh, it's unbecoming that the FBI entered Mar-a-Lago with a subpoena for a formal president. That's unbecoming of law enforcement. Knowing that Trump has obstructed and colluded with business racketeering with Carl Icahn and Rex Tillerson, and that implicated Trump with the Moscow Tower and business embezzling the Oval Office for self-enrichment of business racketeering. That was the first offense that Trump committed. But he obstructed the report. He vetted out the FBI. He fired Comey. He fired Brenner. He fired the Southern District Attorney of New York. And he kept on vetting in the Justice Department. He appointed Rosenstein, then Whitaker, then Bill Barr. And so he escaped justice by tying Robert Mueller's hands with the biggest obstructionist case that Mueller said in American history. Then he didn't learn his lesson. For business racketeering, he sent Giuliani for the love of oil of Exxon to pump energy into the Ukraine to blackmail Lozinski for espionage evidence and dirt on his political opponent. So that was the second offense. He didn't learn his lesson. For 2020, he tried to overturn the government. He tried to use Michael Flynn. He was going to appoint Michael Flynn to impose martial law. At least he was thinking of that option as Sidney Powell seized the voting machines throughout the nation. That's another offense. Now, at Mar-a-Lago, he's hoarding all these incriminative archives of himself through his 4 years in office. And now he's jeopardizing, not only obstructing by hiding all this incriminative evidence that implicates him in his 4 years in the White House, but now he's obstructing the national security and defense capabilities of this nation. I believe he can't plead the fifth when it comes to national security issues. When he gets depositioned by the FBI and the Justice Department, he will not be able to plead the fifth on grounds of treason when it comes to jeopardizing the national security of this nation when it comes to nuclear destruction. And because you got to understand, it's not only the jeopardy of this nation, but it's the jeopardy of all nations throughout the world when it comes to the advanced cutting edge research in nuclear defense. He has no room to plead the fifth. Because you got 42 folders that now the FBI has to scratch their head and say, do we have to go again into his residences and look for these documents? It took them 3 times, and he kept on playing 3-card Molly with these boxes, along with his lawyers. What happened to the Republican Party of yesterday? Yesteryears. The Republicans, elephants, supposed to have long memories, but what happened to those memories of value? Morality. That when the Republicans caught Nixon red-handed with the plumbers breaking into the DNC, they were able to say Nixon has to go. And if he doesn't go, we'll slap handcuffs on him in the Oval Office. What happened to the conscience of the Republicans? I bet you if John McCain was alive, he would have been stuck his foot up Trump's ass so far as the Constitution allowed. Now, I don't mean to be facetious, but that's an analogy of a good conscience Republican. The same for Congresswoman Liz Cheney. The same for Senator Romney. We need more fair-minded Republicans that have at least a boundary that they won't cross when it comes to this nation. Not like Lindsey, that one day, I'm through, that's it, count me out. The next day, he's right back on a bandwagon because he happened to turn on the Fox News and still seeing that Fox was cozying up to Trump. So the next day, he's right back on the bandwagon, along with Congressman McCarthy, hypocrite McCarthy era, with his phone calls being leaked. The hypocrite McCarthyism era. No consciousness these people have. No values. Ted Cruz went on Fox News and said, the people that ransacked the Capitol building on January 6th were terrorists. Carson Tucker said, how dare you call them terrorists? They were freedom fighters. They were patriots. They were people that love our country. And Ted Cruz kowtowed. Yes, you're right. I say again, what happened to the Republican conscience? Back then, the Republicans didn't play no games when it came to corruption of their representatives of their party, meaning Nixon. Soon as they realized that Nixon committed the crime, the Republicans, bipartisanly with the Democrats, gave him no choice but to leave, or else the FBI would have walked into the Oval Office, told Nixon to get up and put his hands behind his back, and they would have handcuffed him and hauled him off to prison. And these bureaucrats, Republicans, it's unbecoming for the FBI to serve a subpoena and enter into a former president's house. Like somehow these are pagan deities above the law as they descend down the golden escalators. The chosen one, their cult leader. What is going on in this country when you have a person like Marjorie Taylor Greene saying a plane never flew into the Pentagon? That was the Pentagon doctoring the security cameras. When you got people like Alex Jones saying that the kids that got shot in the school, that was all make pretend. When you got a general like Michael Flynn, or may I say Q, swearing himself into an occult of QAnon, and believing that JFK Jr. is going to come to run for 2024 from the grave. He's going to resurrect and all of a sudden be by Trump's side. What is wrong with the Republican Party? Are they detached from reality? Because I want to know. Dr. Oz, or may I say the Wizard of Oz, that lived in Jersey, never lived in Pennsylvania, but popped out like the Wizard of Oz through a rabbit hole and ended up trying to be a senator for Pennsylvania. Along with Mastriano, that said that Trump was the biggest hero of 9/11, when Trump never showed up at the crime scene of 9/11. Trump never showed up to how, you know who were the real heroes? The people that died in those buildings were the real heroes. The infinity pools that live on for eternity with their names, those are the real heroes. But you got Mastriano, a fascist that's with the alt-rights of white supremacy in this nation, ready to appoint a Michael Flynn type of martial law for 2024, regardless of the votes. What is going on in this country when the Republicans are detached from common sense of reality? So I just have to say, nobody, no matter if they're a former president or a sitting president, is above the law. And if Nixon said, "He who hates his enemies defeats himself," Trump, you should take that into consideration.